So it's an airborne virus, but you can only get it by touching a coin. The Amazon is no place for a woman. Just don't say that to the women who live there. Hi guys, my name is Gloria and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to tell you a little bit about a book called The Red Death by Bridget Morgan. I think I'm pronouncing that right. So I was given this book to review last year, and I'll link the blog post down below. I'm a little more reserved in my blog post, so I had a few more things I want to say about this book because there were a lot of issues with it. The basic premise of it is that there is a new plague, very much like the old plague. No jokes please, it's too soon. And the story follows a couple of people who get infected with the disease. It follows a CDC worker who is trying to figure out where the disease started and how they can stop it, and also a microbiologist who for some reason thinks that a singular plant only found in a tiny area of the Amazon will cure the plague. We'll get into that after. My first disappointment with this book was that I thought it would be like the movie Contagion. It would show a plague working, a virus working on a global scale, and we would see cities falling apart, communities falling apart, families being torn apart by this. But unfortunately, the disease seems to only be transmitted by a single coin. I kind of get why the author wanted to do this, to show it moving from person to person and taking a singular look at each person and then having them die and having us feel something for it. But unfortunately, it just didn't work that way. The writing of the book is a little bit odd in that in the first chapter, we're seeing the first person being rushed into a hospital, and you don't need to be an expert on ER rooms, you don't need to be a doctor to know what things are called in an ER room. We've all seen every doctor show, but it's like the author had never been in a hospital before or had never seen a TV show, and she was so vague on that, and it was only compounded by the fact that in the next section when they're talking about the viruses, it was like bits were copy and pasted from textbooks. And I mean, even in the tense, like the tense is in sort of past tense, but the tense would change to present tense when they were talking about a virus or how bacteria worked. And to be honest, I just skipped those sections because you don't need to know them to read the book. I mean, you don't need to know how an airborne virus works because that's not how this one seems to work in the book. But also it's just so dense, and it's all these Latin terms and Latin phrases that unless you're actually a scientist, you're not going to know or care about. If you're just here for the pandemic, for the thriller part of it, then you're not going to read those parts. So I'll just read the opening paragraph of the book. This is after the prologue, I think. One of the paramedics was holding a clear bag of liquid in the air, that's an IV drip, attached to the man on the gurney. The other two paramedics took turns squeezing a bag valve mask, an oxygen mask, while the other paramedic pressed down rhythmically on the chest of the man. Those are compressions. Like, I have absolutely no training in anything whatsoever related to the medical world, and I know exactly what those are because I've watched TV, and it's so weirdly vague. If this was a first draft and she didn't know what they were and she was writing in the middle of the night and she was like, can't think of the word, I'll find it later and I'll put it in, that would be fine. But she never did that. She never changed it. And then in contrast to that, I felt like I was going into a biology lesson. He slid his hands back into the glove box, carefully removing the vial of Yersinia pestis and placing it in the culture media. That is one thing. The next paragraph is, since bacteria are microbes which are single-celled, they do not have a nucleus or membrane-bound organelles. All of their genetic information is in a single loop of DNA, unless they have a plasmid. A plasmid is an extra circle of genetic material which replicates individually and may make the bacterium resistant to some forms of antibiotics. Yersinia pestis has 3 different types of plasmids. From his initial inspection, he counted 4 plasmids on the new bacteria. And it kind of goes on like that. It's almost like a little robot comes into the narration to just pop up with little facts. It's jarring. I skipped over those parts. I didn't care. I skipped over them, and I don't feel like there were any holes in the story. You know, I didn't feel like I needed to go back and read those again, because honestly, couldn't understand half it. That was one of the easiest to understand passages. Half of them are all in weird acronyms and Latin, and it just was dense, and it's not needed in a fiction book like this. And like I said before, you don't get any view of the scale of the virus and what it's doing to the world. One of the characters does get on a plane and goes to England, I think, from America, and you think maybe you'll get to see something of that, but it just, you don't follow them there, and that's it. The CDC worker, I think her name's Maggie, you're introduced to her and you think she's a competent, analytical, scientific person, but one of the first things she does, she's convinced that this is a plague, by the way, not just a virus. This is the new plague that could wipe out half of the planet. And the first thing she does is she goes to a place where she thinks the virus has originated, and she walks in there with absolutely no protective equipment whatsoever. She says to herself, oh, I should probably be wearing gloves here, and she just doesn't. She just picks up, she thinks it's originating with rats, and she picks up a rat that she thinks is sick, and she takes it with her in her car, doesn't have any gloves, doesn't have anything, and that to me was just crazy. Like, I've known people who've taken like one class of microbiology and they won't touch money anymore. They've constantly got hand sanitizer with them. So for a CDC worker who knows there is a plague-like virus going about and isn't even wearing gloves, doesn't have any mouth covering or anything for this airborne virus, it just didn't make any sense to me. On another point, there's like kind of a love interest for her in the story, but I just wanted him to go away. Every time it got really tense and they were like, we're trying to save people's lives, he'd just kind of elbow his way in and be like, hey, you want to get Chinese? And it was just so, it was jarring. It didn't make any sense. She doesn't like him from the very beginning. She's like, no thanks, I'm not interested. And he just keeps irritating her as if he's going to wear her down or something. And I highlighted one line in the story where she says, why does he have to be so perfect? And I'm like, he's not. He's just fucking not. You don't even like him. He just came to your house unannounced with a Chinese when you're trying to stop the entire city from disintegrating. He's not perfect. He's an annoying little prick and you should get rid of him, please. And then because of the dense descriptions of how viruses work and how bacteria replicates itself and whatever, the way that the virus is spread to the individual characters that we see is through a coin. The first guy in the book picks up a coin, and then that coin goes to someone else and someone else and someone else, and it seems like you only get the virus if you touch this one coin. So the CDC worker is off trying to find different avenues where the virus might have originated from, but you're following these people passing a coin around, and it just didn't make any sense. And another thing is that I think there's like 5 characters that you're given a chapter of each, and they get the coin and you follow them around for a couple of hours maybe, and you get these, you're told these things about their lives, that they emigrated from this country or that they're having this argument with their daughter or whatever, and you're given a little bit of insight into their life. There's a chapter with a scientist, and then that person's coughing up blood. That is the formula for the chapters. It's like, oh, I'm meeting this person, that's interesting. More science stuff. Oh, they're vomiting blood. And that was like the only symptom. Like, there were some pains and stuff, but every single person just started vomiting blood and you knew immediately that person's about to die and they're gone. So I didn't really care about those people. Also, they were given inner monologues of that. I'm just so sick of seeing this in fiction because it's so boring. It's each person, they were quite diverse people, they were from different countries and everything, and that was great, But each person was given this inner monologue of them just kind of sitting there thinking about what's wrong with our society today, and nobody communicates enough and everyone's on their phones, and if I hear one more monologue like that, my brain's just gonna implode. It's so boring and it just sounds so ridiculous, and who cares? Like, who cares? I want to know about the virus. I want to know about how it's spreading. Like, I want to be there immediately with them while they're with their family, possibly transmitting it to their family, starting to get sick, people are worried about them, you know what's happening, they don't know what's happening. Like, that would be really interesting. Unfortunately, we don't get that, and I just didn't care about those people who died, honestly. But all of that would have kind of made sense. It would have been fine if it weren't for the bizarre Amazon jungle adventure. Where did this come from? Like, she speaks to a scientist, I think, who knows of a guy who thought he found a plague and thought he had a cure for it from this one special plant in the Amazon. I think he's actually an anthropologist, so I don't even know how it worked. But he says that he's gonna get him to take him to the Amazon to find this plant so they can cure the virus. Whatever. Turns out this anthropologist guy is still hung up about a woman he dated 18 years ago. He was dating her for 2 years and he's still super hung up about her. He's been thinking about her for the last 18 years, which is just kind of frightening, to be honest with you. And the guy who asks him to take him to the Amazon is the guy who kind of stole her from him. Later on he realizes that they're actually married. I don't know how he didn't know that for 18 years. I think there's even a line in the book where he says to himself, I should have known when she stopped returning my calls, and it's like, what the hell is going on? But anyway, they decide to go to the Amazon, trekking through the Amazon to find this plant. But the guy who asked him to take him to the Amazon brings along a female scientist who has multiple degrees in microbiology, bacteriology, whatever. She speaks several languages, very competent. She's there to help them with the bacteria, I guess. I just have one issue with her, is that she's completely annihilated as a character. Instantly, one of the first things this seasoned scientist says to her is, the jungle is no place for a woman. And then the guy who's taking them on a boat says it, and I think the guy who takes them on a plane says it. And it's constantly just about how she looks. She doesn't do anything scientific, she doesn't speak any other languages, she doesn't do anything. There's a theory, I think it was started by a comic book writer, called the sexy lamp theory, and that's exactly what this is. You could replace this character with a sexy lamp that the male scientist could just be horny over and want to keep beside him, and it wouldn't change the story in any way whatsoever. The only reason she's there is so that she can get kidnapped by a cannibal Amazon tribe. And no, this isn't a sitcom from the 50s. I was waiting for the quicksand to show up as well, but you know, they missed out on that one. It's just so weird, and obviously this crappy anthropologist guy, who, by the way, there's a whole passage of him complaining about scientists using technology. Like, he is complaining that archaeologists are using like satellites and x-ray machines and stuff instead of just listening to him and going on their hunches. Like, for scientists to not be trying to better themselves constantly is absolutely bizarre to me. I don't know why that was in there. I showed it to my boyfriend, who is a doctor of physics, and he just asked me never to show that to him again. So it's absolutely ridiculous. So he hates women, he hates technology, he's just a douchebag pretty much, but obviously he's the cool guy. He's like the Indiana Jones guy who like saves them from the tribe, and he gets the plant and he blah blah blah. And this is a spoiler. The very end of the book, where do you think this sexy lamp scientist is? she's in his bedroom wearing his shirt, pouring him a glass of red wine. And yeah. Like it was so insulting to have that in there, this weird misogynistic thing. I mean, why was she a scientist? Why did she have all these degrees if she wasn't going to do anything with them? Why was she even there? Why did she have to be with him at the end? He was a complete douchebag to her the entire way they were trekking through the Amazon. He was constantly belittling her and insulting her, and then she just falls into bed with him. Like, she's clearly a smart woman. She would have been smart enough to stay away from that hot mess of garbage. And yeah, so the book it just annoyed me. The Red Death may have put me off pandemic thrillers for the time being. If you have any actual good pandemic thrillers that you think I might enjoy, please let me know down below. Like and subscribe. Ah, Pikachu lost his hat. Pikachu. Like and subscribe if you like what I'm doing here. I'll have a new video up very soon. I'm batch videoing at the minute. I'm doing this all in one day, so I'll be wearing the same shirt. Get over it. I'll see you in the next video.